before you immerse yourself in this deeply moving narrative of unwavering spirit, unexpected kindness, and triumphant return, remember to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and comment below with your thoughts. Your support helps us share more heartwarming stories. The tattered dress and the triumphant return. Humiliated, expelled. Yet she walks the aisle as the bride. Imagine the grand arches of a cathedral, bathed in sunlight, suddenly shattered by a cruel public shaming. A young woman, dressed in a simple, mended gown, is scorned as an intruder, ridiculed for her humble attire, and thrown out of a wedding she only dreamed of witnessing. "You'll never be anyone," they sneered. But destiny, with its own intricate designs, has a different plan. Years later, she walks down that very same aisle, not as an outcast, but as the radiant bride. Her presence a powerful testament to resilience and an unspoken secret. Prepare for a story of unexpected defiance, the transformative power of kindness, and a final revelation that will bring an entire congregation to its feet. A dream in the cathedral, the sunlight delicately filtered through the colorful stained glass windows of the imposing cathedral, as if heaven itself had decided to bless that sacred moment, painting golden and crimson strokes on the white marble floor. The soft sound of the classical organ filled the space with a melody that seemed to cradle time, as if the world inside had paused for a few minutes just to witness the beauty of a love being celebrated. The tall columns seemed to touch the sky, and the church pews were filled with guests dressed in their finest clothes, men in impeccable suits, women with sparkling jewels and expensive perfumes, all in silent reverence to the moment unfolding before them. At the altar, the bride walked with slow, confident steps, like a queen moving towards the throne of her destiny. Her gown was a waterfall of satin and lace, delicately embroidered with an almost celestial grace. The sparkle of each beaded detail seemed to capture the light and return it in the form of hope, love, and eternal promises. The translucent veil followed her steps like a river of dreams, and her elegant hairstyle revealed the soft features of a face radiating happiness. But while all eyes were fixed on the beauty of that luxurious ceremony, few noticed the timid presence at the back of the church. A 17-year-old girl who entered almost silently, as if afraid to disturb that perfection. Her name was Eliza, a young woman of humble origin, born in a simple home where dreams were bigger than resources. The dress she wore was self-made. It had men's in some places, but it was clean, neatly pressed, and curiously beautiful. Perhaps because it carried more than just fabric and thread. It carried dedication, hope, and the touch of someone who believed in the impossible. She sat in the last wooden pew, the furthest of all, as if she knew that this wasn't exactly her place. But even so, she needed to see with her own eyes what her heart longed for. Hearing the wedding march as she passed the front of the church, something inside her whispered, "Go in." And she did. Her large blue eyes were fixed on the bride. There was a sparkle in them that was not just admiration. It was desire. Not the desire to have that woman's life, but to one day realize her own dream, to be recognized not by the clothes she wore, but by the talent she hid in her hands, to sew not just clothes, but destinies. As the bride exchanged vows with the man waiting for her, smiling at the altar, Eliza clasped her hands together in her lap. Every word spoken by the couple fell upon her like undeserved blessings, but she absorbed them with an open heart. And when the kiss sealed the couple's union and applause filled the air, Eliza didn't clap. She just let a silent tear slide down her face. It was a sweet tear, laden with emotion and dreams. She wasn't crying out of sadness. She was crying because, at that instant, she realized that she still had faith. The faith that even someone like her, with a mended dress, a difficult past, and an uncertain future, could one day be there, not necessarily as the bride, but as the designer behind the dresses that would make other women dream as she dreamed now. Eliza wiped her tears with her fingertips and smiled, still sitting in the solitary pew. It was a small smile, but full of meaning. Because there, in that respectful silence after the applause, a new story was being born. Not that of the couple at the altar, but that of a young dreamer who had just promised herself that she would never give up. What dreams do you think Eliza truly harbors, beyond just becoming a renowned designer? How does her quiet presence in the cathedral and her mended dress symbolize her character and aspirations? Share your insights in the comments. A public humiliation, a heroic intervention. It was then, suddenly, like lightning striking a serene sky, that a shrill voice echoed from the back of the cathedral, breaking the sacred harmony that hung in the air. "Excuse me, what do you think you're doing here?" The voice, laden with disdain, boomed. Eliza froze. Her heart pounded. Her trembling hands clutched the fabric of her own dress, and slowly she turned, fearing what she would find. In front of her stood a woman of haughty posture, dressed in a dazzling emerald green gown that shimmered under the lights filtering through the stained glass windows. A diamond necklace sparkled on her chest, like a cruel reminder of a world Eliza had never touched. The woman exuded arrogance. She was the bride's older sister, known for her venomous tongue and a heart harder than cold marble. Her eyes swept over Eliza as if she were a plague, a stain that had slipped into that perfect moment. I just wanted to see the ceremony," Eliza stammered, her voice barely coming out, choked by the shame that was already beginning to suffocate her. "Who let you in?" the woman retorted, her eyebrows raised in disdain. "This isn't a shelter, you ragged girl. Did you really think you could sneak in, steal a moment, pretend you belong in this place?" The words were like knives, sharp and precise, cutting deep into Eliza's fragile soul. The young woman stood motionless, her eyes wide, her heart so tight it seemed to hurt physically. And as if the universe conspired to worsen the scene, the murmur caused by the argument spread through the church pews like fire in dry straw. The elegantly dressed guests began to turn, looking at the scene in the back, with eyes full of judgment. Murmurs grew in volume. Muffled laughter escaped, painted and perfumed mouths. Mockery began to echo through the holy corridors, as if the sacred had dissolved into human cruelty. "Just look at that rag," said a man in an expensive suit, laughing scornfully. "What is she wearing? It looks like something from the trash," sneered a teenager next to her mother. "Where did this girl come from?" whispered another lady, without hiding the disdain in her eyes. Eliza felt her face burn, as if she had been exposed to the cruelest sun. Every glance at her was like a condemnation. Every comment, a stone thrown. Her tears began to well up, hot and silent, streaming down her face as if trying to clean the pain from the inside out. "I didn't mean to offend anyone," she stammered, trying, even under the weight of humiliation, to defend her innocence. "I just wanted to feel special for a day." But the woman's response was as cruel as the rest. "Then find a fantasy world for that. Do you hear me?" She spat the words like venom. "This is a real wedding, for real families. Get out of here right now before you bring misfortune to the couple with your presence." The word misfortune cut deep, as if Eliza were an omen of bad luck just for existing, for dreaming, for daring to sit in a place where she believed, for a single instant, that perhaps she too was worthy of something beautiful. With her shoulders slumped and her head down, Eliza slowly stood up. Each step towards the door seemed to weigh tons. The murmurs still echoed behind her, like voices insisting on reminding her who she was or who she wasn't. It was then, suddenly, from the back of the aisle, like thunder wrapped in serenity, a low but powerful voice, like a blade. "Enough!" In an instant, the murmuring ceased. The acid laughter, the cruel whispers, the eyes laden with disdain. Everything fell silent. A solemn silence took over the cathedral, as if an invisible force had pressed down on the chest of every person present, forcing everyone to learn to breathe. Eyes turned in the direction of the voice, and then he appeared, firm, elegant steps. A tall man dressed in a tailored black suit, dark hair slightly disheveled, as if each strand had been placed there by a whim of fate. His eyes, dark, intense, enigmatic, did not stray from Eliza's face. His presence didn't demand silence. It commanded it. Whispers began to spread again, but this time in a completely different tone. "It's him, Mr. Lucas Sterling, the bride's brother, the heir." Yes, he was well known. Millionaire, elusive, untouchable. A man who rarely appeared at public events, much less at family ceremonies. His name carried power. His absence, mystery. His presence, astonishment. Lucas walked slowly to where Eliza was, still with teary eyes, her body trembling with shame, her face towards the ground, as if she wanted to disappear. He stopped beside her, and then, in a low, firm voice, without raising a single syllable more than necessary, he asked, "I'm only going to ask once," he said, turning to the woman in the emerald green dress who stood pale, suddenly disconcerted. "Who told you she wasn't invited?" The woman blinked, confused. "What?" He then turned to this crowd. Every face now watched him with tension. "Who said this girl is here alone?" His voice resonated through the cathedral like an accusation. No one responded. Not a sound. "Why this moment?" he continued, facing everyone with the firmness of someone who never needed to shout to be obeyed. "She is with me." A collective gasp of surprise. Disbelief and scandal swept through the room. The woman in green screamed, You're kidding, Lucas, right?" But he didn't respond. He didn't need to. With a calm and gentle gesture, he took off his own jacket and carefully placed it over Eliza's fragile shoulders, which trembled no longer from shame, but from confusion. She looked at him, dazed, her lips parted, as if waking from a nightmare into a dream she didn't understand. "Why?" she whispered. Lucas looked at her intently. "Because no one," he said firmly, "should feel inferior to what they are." And then, like a knight from a fairy tale she never dared to dream of, he delicately placed his hand on Eliza's back and led her step by step down the central aisle of the cathedral. The crowd parted in silence, and no one dared to say a word. No one dared to stop them. Behind them, the furious woman shrieked, her uncontrolled voice breaking the silence. "What do you think you're doing, Lucas? She's just a beggar from the street, an intruder." But Lucas didn't turn back. He didn't respond. He didn't even hesitate. With every step he took beside Eliza, a new story seemed to be written beneath their feet. The wedding had ended. The vows had been exchanged. The promises made. But there, in that magical and unexpected moment, something much bigger, much more unforgettable, was just beginning. Because sometimes the real miracle isn't at the altar, but in someone who has the courage to extend a hand to someone the whole world ignored. In that silent gesture, in that unwavering protection, Lucas not only changed Eliza's life, but rescued her from the depths of pain and led her, for the first time, towards the worth she always had, even when no one saw her. What is the most impactful moment of Eliza's public humiliation in the cathedral? How does Lucas's dramatic intervention and his simple act of placing his jacket on Eliza transform the atmosphere and challenge the other guests? Share your insights in the comments. A new beginning, a quiet promise. The late afternoon sun was already beginning to set behind the cathedral, painting the sky with amber and fire, while the last rays of light danced on the stained glass windows and dissipated on the gravel path. Eliza remained there, motionless, as if time had stopped around her. Lucas's jacket still rested on her slender shoulders, too large for her body, but strangely enough, it seemed to fit perfectly in that moment. She looked at the ground, as if trying to find her own feet again, like someone who had woken from a dream too beautiful to be real, and now needed to understand if all of it had truly happened. Her heart still pounded, her thoughts muddled. The humiliation she had felt minutes before still burned on her skin, but it had been stifled by something much more unexpected: dignity. Beside her, Lucas was silent, his arms gently crossed, his eyes fixed on her. Not like someone judging, but like someone patiently observing a cracked vase that still had the strength to maintain its beauty. He said nothing. He just stood there, offering her something rare in this day and age: his presence. Eliza, feeling the weight of unspoken words, turned, her voice caught in her throat, coming out rough and tense. "Why did you do it?" she asked. He looked at her with serenity. His gaze was firm, but full of something Eliza still couldn't name. "Why can't I stand by and watch someone be mistreated?" The words fell like a warm blanket over Eliza's cold soul. She looked at him, confused, skeptical, fragile. "But you don't know me." He smiled, but without embarrassment. It was a calm smile, full of meaning. "It's true," he replied. "I don't know your story, but I don't need to know it, to know that you didn't deserve to go through that. No one deserves to be humiliated for being humble." Eliza looked down. For the first time in a long time, she wanted to believe those words. He continued, as if he were cleaning old wounds with each phrase. "By the way, my name is Lucas Sterling. I want to apologize for my sister's ignorance. Her arrogance will still be her own downfall." He paused, and then, with a sincere look, added, "And your dress, despite being simple, is very beautiful." Eliza's eyes widened, surprised, uncertain. "Thank you. My name is Eliza Suarez." "Who made it?" he asked. She hesitated for a second, as if that answer could expose too much. "I did," she whispered. Lucas smiled again, this time with a genuine sparkle in his eyes. "Really? You really have a lot of talent." Eliza pressed her lips together. A part of her wanted to run, to escape from that unexpected kindness that disarmed every defense she had built throughout her life. She wasn't used to being praised, much less by someone like him. But Lucas seemed to understand that silence, that doubt between wanting to trust and the fear of getting hurt again. After a moment, he took his jacket from her shoulders, put his hand in his pocket, and pulled out a business card. "I'm not trying to complicate your life," he said, offering the card. "But if you ever want to talk, or if you're looking for a job, I own a fashion company. We're always looking for new talent." Eliza took the card with trembling fingers, as if she were receiving a piece of a destiny she never dared to imagine. The paper was glossy, sophisticated, and on it glowed the name: Lucas Sterling. Diva Couture. It was real. He was real. Her heart raced, but a deep doubt filled her expression. She looked up at it, said in a low voice, almost a whisper. I'm not a project." Lucas wasn't offended, nor did he hesitate. He merely leaned slightly forward with that same tone of respect and truth he had used from the beginning. "I know," he replied calmly. "You're someone who deserves better." And then he turned gracefully and walked towards the black car that awaited him. The tinted windows hid the interior, but not the feeling that that man carried an entire world within him. A world that for some reason had for a moment inclined towards Eliza. She stood there, as if holding her breath, as if holding the entire universe in a piece of glossy paper. The card was still in her hand, but within her, something new had ignited. It wasn't just hope. It was the possibility of starting over. And although the wedding had ended in that golden and silent sun, what had just been born was much greater than any ceremony. It was the beginning of a turning point, of a story in which, perhaps for the first time, the world began to look at Eliza not as someone who didn't belong, but as someone who was exactly where she deserved to be. How does Lucas's calm and respectful demeanor disarm Eliza, despite her past trauma? What is the significance of Eliza's self-made dress and Lucas's appreciation for her talent beyond its monetary value? Share your insights in the comments. A seed of hope, a new path. That night, back in the humble house where dreams slept tightly, between the cracks of plaster walls and hope, Eliza entered through the wooden door with a quiet sigh, with slow steps, as if she still carried the weight of the world on her shoulders. The smell of sautéed garlic and fresh rice filled the small room with warmth and familiarity. In the leaf oven, the pot steamed with vapor and memories, as Olga, her mother, lovingly stirred the broth she prepared with the little she had. Olga was one of those women the world tried to knock down many times. A woman who fought to survive, but who always rose again with a tired smile on her lips and a silent faith in her eyes. A single mother, she became pregnant with Eliza at 16, her boyfriend abandoning her upon hearing the news. Olga gave birth alone, giving up her dream of studying sewing at a vocational school and accepting a job as a seamstress's assistant in a small tailor shop. She had faced the harshness of life like someone facing a storm barefoot, with her feet firm on the ground and her heart wrapped in promises. Eliza was all she had. She was her greatest joy, her daily motivation. Seeing her daughter walk through the door was always a relief, a reminder that despite everything, they still had each other. Olga turned, smiling sweetly. "How was your walk, daughter?" She looked her up and down, at the dress Eliza still wore, now a little wrinkled, but still worthy in the eyes of a mother who saw beauty where the world only saw men's. "In that dress, you must have been the center of attention." Her eyes filled. "You look like a princess." Eliza pressed her lips together. Inside, she felt the weight of each word like a knife in open flesh. "On the contrary, mother, I was humiliated," she said, her voice low but laden with pain, "for wearing that mended dress." Olga immediately stopped stirring. Her eyes widened with the same speed as someone who knew very well the bitter taste of rejection. "How so, daughter? Who humiliated you?" It was then that Eliza sat at the small wooden table. The bench groaned under her weight, but no more than her soul. She took a deep breath and then told everything, every detail. The innocent desire to enter the church after hearing the wedding march, the dazzle with the bride, the silence of the ceremony that for an instant made her dream, until the moment she was caught by surprise by a cruel woman who shouted at her in front of everyone. The laughter, the looks of contempt, the harsh words. And then, like a twist she still didn't know if was real or imagination, the arrival of Lucas. Olga listened in silence, but an expression of revolt appeared on her face. Her hands gripped the spatula tightly. With each new word from her daughter, her eyes filled more, not just with tears, but with an old feeling of helplessness, the kind only mothers know when they see their children bleeding inside. When Eliza finished, the kitchen fell silent. The broth simmered on the stove, as if trying to fill the void between mother and daughter. Then, Olga approached and touched her daughter's hand with tenderness. "My daughter, I'm so sorry you went through this," she said with watery eyes. "If I could protect you from every injustice, I would protect you. But the world is harsh, and sometimes it hurts precisely those who dream the most." Eliza took a deep breath. "It's all right, Mother. I won't let this affect me." Her voice trembled, but there was a different light in it, a new strength, as if the pain had carved out space for something deeper to grow. Olga wiped her eyes with the dishcloth. "And this boy? Did you know him already?" Eliza shook her head. "No, Mother. He was just someone kind." They stayed there, the two of them, in silence. She didn't need to say anything else, but that night, when the rice was served and the soup steamed in the enameled bowls, something had changed. The world was still the same, unfair, cruel, full of people who measure worth in the sparkle of clothes or the weight of a surname. But now, inside that simple house, in the hands of a girl with a mended dress and a glossy card on the table, there was a new possibility. Eliza had inherited her mother's dream, not by birth, but by living it, by the silent inspiration that gets under the skin and blossoms in the heart. Olga wasn't just a strong woman. She was a seamstress of the soul. Her hands, marked by years of needles, fine lines, and soiled fabrics, had the power to transform little into beauty, to give shape to feelings through precise stitches and infinite patience. Within that small, improvised atelier in the living room, amidst paper patterns, worn scissors, and colorful spools of thread, Eliza's love for the art of sewing was born. From a young age, she grew up watching her mother sitting at the old sewing machine, pedaling carefully, frowning whenever a hem stubbornly came out crooked, or when the fabric slipped between her fingers. Olga sewed for others in her spare time, even if she could charge little, but she never sewed without love. Every stitch was a gesture of hope, and although life had been hard on the two of them, there was beauty in what they built together. Clothes that gave dignity, dresses that created memories, details that healed invisible wounds. It was thus that Eliza began to design her own dreams among forgotten scraps of fabric. She dreamed of being a designer, not just a seamstress, but a creator. She wanted to see her pieces on runways, in illuminated shop windows, on the bodies of women who would never imagine that behind every stitch lay the soul of a girl of humble origin, but of grand imagination. She didn't dream out of vanity. She dreamed because every time she saw her mother transform a piece of cloth into a dress, she understood. Fashion could be more than appearance. It could be a voice. It could be redemption. That night, sitting at the table with the bowl of soup in front of her, and her eyes still lost in the memories of the wedding, Eliza clutched Lucas's card between her fingers, as if it were more than just a piece of paper. It was almost a key, a door that perhaps was beginning to open. But deep down, the desire that pulsed within her was not just to escape poverty. It was to do justice, as if, having the world's talent in her hands, she never had the opportunity to be seen. If Eliza could get there, it wouldn't be just for herself. It would be for Olga, too. For all the invisible women who, behind their sewing machines, sewed the dreams of others while their own slept, folded at the bottom of a box. And it was at that instant, between a warm sip of soup and the complicit silence of a mother who understood everything, even without words, that a decision was made. She would try, for the girl who cried on that church bench, for the woman who defended her with her eyes, and for the seamstress who taught her that every stitch has power. And Olga knew, deep down in her heart, that that night would be remembered not for the pain, but because it was there that destiny, for the first time, knocked gently at the door, and the girl who once sewed her own dreams with threads of hope was about to live a story she never had the courage to design. How does Olga's quiet strength and her own life story influence Eliza's artistic aspirations and resilience? What is the significance of Eliza's dream evolving from simply attending a wedding to becoming a respected designer? Share your insights in the comments. Diva Couture. A star is born. A week later, time seemed to have slowed down inside the small house where Eliza's dreams were woven one by one with scraps of hope. Her mother's old sewing machine, silent for days, now vibrated again under the girl's delicate hands. She wasn't sewing at that moment. She was just observing. Her gaze was lost among the worn tools, the rusty iron pedal, and the scraps around her. Colorful fabrics that her mother reused from the tailor shop where she worked as a seamstress. These pieces of cloth told stories of other people, but now, for the first time, Eliza wanted to write her own. She held the glossy card in her hands that seemed to glow in the late afternoon light, and wrote, Sterling, Diva Couture, the name that had appeared in her life like an unexpected breeze in the midst of a hurricane. Eliza took a deep breath. Her heart pounded as if with each beat it said, Go! She picked up her cell phone. Her fingers trembled, but not from fear. It was the excitement of being, for the first time, about to be heard. Hello, a firm voice said on the other end. Hello, this is Eliza, she replied, her voice almost choked but firm. From the church. There was a slight pause, and then Lucas's voice softened, as if he were smiling. Yes, I remember you. His words were like an invisible hug. Eliza closed her eyes on the other end of the line. The response was quick and enthusiastic. Yes, actually, it's the right time. We're holding a special event next week here at the company, at Diva Couture. It's a selection for new talents. We need fresh eyes, hands that feel fashion like you do. The address is on the card. I'd love for you to come. For a moment, Eliza was silent. She looked around the house, saw the stained curtain swaying in the wind, the meticulously cleaned concrete floor, and the wooden table with sewing and flower marks. It was the house where everything began, where her first scribbles turned into patterns, and her first crooked lines turned into doll dresses. Was she ready to leave there? She didn't know, but she knew she wanted to try. All right, she finally said. On the other end, Lucas seemed satisfied. Great. If you want, I can send a car to pick you up. Eliza's eyes widened. Surprise! Yes, I'm very grateful, she replied with a choked voice. She gave him her address, and after hanging up, she held the phone to her chest for a few seconds. Her breath hitched. A subtle, faint pang shot through her chest, like a flame dancing against the wind. But it was there. Alive. She slowly stood up, still holding the card, and brought her hand to her heart. She wasn't a girl who believed in fairy tales. Life had already shown her that the real world doesn't forgive the fragile. But at that moment, something changed. Because sometimes, a stranger's kindness looks a lot like a sign of destiny. Just maybe Lucas was the push she needed. The first step on an invisible staircase she had longed to climb for a long time. That night, Eliza didn't sew any dresses, but she steadied her heart. She embarked on a new path within herself, and while her mother's machine remained there, silent, a certainty blossomed within her. The first stitch had already been made. And it was just the beginning. The driver, dressed with discreet elegance, got out of the vehicle and, with a gentle smile, opened the door for her. "This way, miss. Mr. Sterling is waiting for you." Eliza settled into the back seat, her heart pounding like a growing orchestra. The drive to Diva Couture was serene, but within her, there was a sense of peace. It was like a storm of emotions: anxiety, hope, fear, and a hint of disbelief danced within her chest, as if at any moment the dream would awaken. When the car finally stopped in front of the building, Eliza got out with a mixture of fear and determination. Her hair was neatly pinned in a low, delicate bun, styled by her mother that morning, with hands that trembled more from emotion than technique. The light blue dress she wore, though simple, had an elegant cut, sewn by her with scraps of fabric her mother had brought from the tailor shop where she worked. There were no visible mends. There was purpose. There was beauty. In front of the large glass door, Eliza hesitated for a brief instant. Here, the rhythm was different. Women walked back and forth with slender heels, impeccable makeup, dresses that seemed to float. There was something in that atmosphere that screamed luxury, demand, power. And amidst all this, she, a girl of humble origin, with a dream bigger than the reality she was born into. Am I capable? Was what he saw in me real, or just a gesture of pity? No. But the fear lasted only a short time. She knew that doors like that didn't open twice. With a slight sigh, she pushed the glass and entered. The sensation was like stepping through a mirror. The world inside seemed different, but she was ready to face it. At the back of the hall, Lucas was coordinating the event. He was impeccable, as always, in a dark suit, his gaze attentive, surrounded by renowned stylists and young fashion promises who had been selected for that opportunity. But as soon as his eyes met Eliza's, his expression changed. A wide smile formed on his face. Lucas took a few steps towards her, naturally moving through the crowd, as if nothing else mattered. "It's good you came, Eliza. I was waiting for you." Eliza smiled shyly, her eyes absorbing every detail of the surroundings. Everything was so immense, so professional, so distant from what she knew. But Lucas's presence calmed her. With a gesture, he invited her to follow him down a brightly lit, elegant corridor to a white door. Opening it, he revealed something that took her breath away. A complete atelier. There, time seemed to stop. State-of-the-art industrial sewing machines, rolls and rolls of fine fabrics piled by color and texture, metallic zippers, mother-of-pearl buttons, golden embellishments, French lace, life-sized mannequins, computers with advanced software for pattern creation. It was as if she had been transported directly into one of the dreams she quietly sewed at night, when the light wasn't so precise. "So?" Lucas said, hands in his pockets, observing her reaction. "What do you think of your new workspace?" Eliza slowly turned, her eyes shining. "My new workspace?" "Yes," he confirmed with a half-smile. "I already saw your talent, Eliza, and I imagine the dress you're wearing was made by you." She blushed, but nodded. "I sewed it 2 days ago. It's nothing too special. I just used scraps from the tailor shop where my mother works." "Yes," Lucas interrupted firmly. "Yes, Eliza, because you didn't need expensive fabrics to make something beautiful. You just needed vision and courage. And now all you lacked was opportunity. And here it is." Lucas's words enveloped her like a cloak. Inside her, her ideas, her skill, her sensitivity were being seen, recognized, valued. That room wasn't just an atelier. It was a stage, a rebirth, the first place in the world where she could be who she always dreamed of being. Eliza took a step forward, breathed deeply, and touched one of the machines with her fingertips. It was like feeling the future pulsating, the same world she had once sketched in an old notebook with broken lines and dreams too big. At that moment, with watery eyes and a racing heart, Eliza said nothing. But Lucas understood, and perhaps deep down, he knew too. A new star was about to shine, and her name was Eliza. How does Lucas's gesture of providing Eliza with a fully equipped atelier symbolize his belief in her talent and his commitment to her dreams? What is the significance of Eliza recognizing her new workspace as a stage and a rebirth? Share your insights in the comments. Beyond humiliation, a triumphant return. The days that followed were like a dream that couldn't quite be grasped. Every morning that atelier seemed magical, as if that place had always belonged to her, or she to it. The machines, once imposing, now danced under her fingers. Patterns took shape with precision. Fabrics that were once just scraps transformed before her eyes into dresses with a soul, as if they carried stories in every stitch. Her delicate eye for detail, her refined aesthetic sense, and her quiet passion quickly won over the professionals around her. It was impossible to ignore her talent. Lucas observed in silence, often standing at the atelier door, watching her move gracefully among mannequins and colorful threads, like an artist molding her masterpiece. There was something about Eliza that couldn't be taught: authenticity. The strength of her creations reflected that. Her design stood out in Diva Couture's windows, minimalist dresses with bold cuts, others inspired by flowers, clouds, feelings. There was one for every emotion, all created with fabric scraps that Eliza transformed into art. The news spread. Fashion magazines began to talk about a new creative star discovered by Lucas Sterling. When interviewed, he left no doubt. What she has can't be bought. It's a gift. That particular morning, Eliza arrived earlier than usual. The sun had barely warmed the reception windows, and she was already walking lightly towards the atelier. In one hand, a small rolled-up sketch. Another idea she had had during the night that she needed to put on paper before it escaped. But then something made her stop. Not something. Someone. A shrill voice echoed in the lobby, breaking the morning silence like a knife. "Well now, aren't you that ragged girl from the mended dress?" the woman said with the same arrogance as before, but now mixed with scorn. "What are you doing here? As if it wasn't enough to crash my sister's wedding, now you invade the family company. Get out of here. Call security." Eliza's eyes widened. The usual smiles of the receptionists disappeared, replaced by stunned expressions. A heavy silence fell over the place, broken only by the impatient huffs of the screaming woman. Yes, it was Eleanor, the same woman who humiliated her at the church, Lucas's sister. But before any employee could react, a new voice rose in the air, firm, unmistakable, like thunder cutting through a clear sky. "Enough, Eleanor!" Lucas emerged from the end of the corridor, his expression laden with controlled anger. He walked to the reception, stopping between the two women. Eliza was motionless. The paper with the sketch trembled in her hands. "But Lucas, I came here to buy one of the models from the new collection, created by the new talent. And I find this intruder again." Again, his next words were spoken calmly, but their intensity reverberated like fire. "Oh, so you came to buy a model from the new collection?" he said, looking at his sister. "Well, let me introduce you to the creator, the talent behind everything you saw in the windows, the heart of our new collection." "What?" Eleanor stammered, frowning. "Is this some kind of joke, Lucas?" "No," he responded, taking a step forward. "This is the truth. Her name is Eliza, and it was she who created every single dress you so admired. The intruder, as you call her, is now the biggest name to ever pass through this company since its founding." Eleanor paled. Her look of disdain gave way to one of disbelief. Her lips trembled as she tried to form a response. "No, it can't be. I refuse to wear a design made by this. Then you're free to leave," Lucas interrupted without hesitation. "Why here, Eleanor? We don't discriminate talent by origin, and we don't humiliate those who just wanted a place in the sun. Now please, leave." The woman hesitated for a second, panting, looking around and realizing that no one supported her. Then, without another option, she turned with a sudden movement and left in despair, her heels furiously hitting the floor. The door closed behind her with a thud. In the next instant, Lucas turned and saw Eliza silently crying. Tears streamed without haste, as if releasing years of silencing, of invisibility, of unspoken wounds. He didn't hesitate. He walked to her and enveloped her in a strong, comforting embrace. "I'm sorry again, Eliza," he whispered. "My sister, she's beyond help, but I promise you, she will never humiliate you again. Never again." Eliza said nothing. She just cried into his shoulder, feeling, perhaps for the first time in her life, that someone saw her, not out of pity, but for who she truly was and for all that she could still be. How does Eleanor's public humiliation mirror Eliza's past experience, creating a sense of poetic justice? What is the significance of Lucas choosing to defend Eliza publicly rather than privately, and how does it affirm Eliza's worth? Share your insights in the comments. "Are you ready?" Lucas asked with a confident smile, as he delicately tucked a strand of dark hair that fell over Eliza's face. The gesture, however subtle, carried a silent promise of protection, of trust, of something she still dared not name. "Ready? For what?" Eliza whispered excitedly, nervously clenching her fingers on the frayed hem of her dress, as if that simple fabric were her armor against everything she had already faced. The silence in the atelier seemed to hold its breath along with her. There was still so much she didn't understand, so many doubts, so many wounds that still burned, and at the same time, the fragile flame that now burned within her chest. Something new, warm, alive. Lucas took a step closer. His eyes maintained that serene intensity, like someone who sees far beyond what others can see. He didn't see the humble seamstress. He saw the raw diamond that, under pressure, transformed into something impossible to ignore. "Ready to be recognized worldwide," he replied firmly. "Eliza, I will make you the greatest and best designer of all time, and when you're at the top, and you will be, my sister, or anyone else, will never again have the courage to humiliate you. And most importantly, that will be your merit." She looked up at him, her heart beating wildly. The sound of her own name, spoken that way with so much conviction, touched her like music. But she remained there, caught between fear and dream. No one had ever bet on her. No one had ever believed in her that way. "Don't you understand, Lucas? I'm just a girl with an old machine and a pile of fabric scraps. I don't have a degree, nor a passport or influence." "Ah, that's exactly what makes you special," he interrupted gently. "You create with your heart. You sow emotions, not just lines. And you know what else? My company needs that. It needs soul. And you have soul to spare." He smiled, taking one of her creations on the mannequin. A white dress with fluid lines and almost invisible seams, with delicate details on the sleeves that resembled wings. Eliza didn't even realize it, but that dress seemed to have come straight out of a dream. "With you, I'm not just investing in a designer, Lucas said. I'm investing in the future of Diva Couture. Your truth, your origin, your pain. All of that is sewn into every stitch. That's what makes your dresses touch people, and the world will see that. The words hung in the air, and Eliza felt their impact as if they were petals and thorns at the same time. A mix of fear and hope stirred within her. She didn't know what would happen next, but for the first time, she believed that perhaps she deserved more than just surviving. Perhaps, just perhaps, she was ready. Now, the name Eliza Suarez was not only remembered by those who witnessed her humiliation, or by those who doubted her presence at a ceremony where she was not expected. Now, it was emblazoned in fashion magazines, on the covers of international editorials, and trending on social media. She was the new modern Cinderella, as a renowned magazine called her. The girl with the mended dress, who one day only wanted to attend a wedding. Now, she created dresses that brides lined up for, and renowned designers applauded standing. Her emotional designs, sewn into every fold, seemed to tell a living story that touched those who wore them, and also those who simply looked at them. In the heart of the atelier, surrounded by fine fabrics and handmade patterns, Eliza stood in front of a mannequin, carefully adjusting the latest design. She wore a lilac dress, simple and refined, with lace details on the sleeves and a drape she herself designed, inspired by the sun she saw from the atelier window on creative afternoons. Her hair was pulled back in a low, delicate bun, and her focused eyes seemed immersed in a world of her own, the world where she finally felt she belonged. Lucas observed from a distance, leaning against the atelier doorframe, his arms crossed and a serene smile on his lips. He saw in front of him not just a talented designer, but a woman who was blossoming, who rose day after day from the shadows of a past that almost silenced her. He saw the girl who was once kicked out of a church as an intruder and was now revered as a symbol of overcoming adversity, elegance, and talent. "You truly surprise me every day," he said softly, his voice full of sincere admiration. Eliza looked up from the mannequin, her heart beating faster at the sound of his voice. She smiled shyly, but proudly, and replied tenderly, "That wouldn't be possible if it weren't for you." She took a step towards him. "You're an angel who appeared in my life." Lucas slowly approached, his eyes fixed on her, as if searching for something in her that he himself didn't know he needed. "Can I say the same?" he said, honesty visible in his gaze. "I'm so sorry for everything you went through in that church, for every cruel word, every laugh that hurt you. But if you hadn't entered that ceremony, today, Diva Couture wouldn't be the success it is, and I, Eliza, wouldn't be the man I've become. So, are you my angel?" She didn't answer immediately. She just stood there, looking at him with moist eyes, laden with something between gratitude and a love she tried not to acknowledge. The silence that settled between them wasn't awkward. It was dense, full of everything words couldn't translate. Then, Lucas stepped forward, breaking that last invisible barrier that still separated them. He gently took Eliza in his arms, and before she could say anything, he kissed her head. A pure gesture, full of respect and tenderness. "You're my angel," he whispered, his voice hoarse, almost a whisper meant only for her. Eliza's eyes shone, no longer timid, but yielding to the emotion that escaped in soft tears. Then Lucas took her hand, intertwining his fingers with hers, as if that gesture sealed a new story that was beginning to be written. This time, not with suffering, but with love, reciprocity, and admiration. Here, under the golden lights of the atelier, amidst the glow of fabrics, and the soft sound of machines in the distance, something greater blossomed. Something real. Something impossible to ignore. Something like love. What is the significance of Eliza's designs being created from scraps of fabric, and how does this symbolize her journey? How does Lucas's perception of Eliza evolve from talent to angel? And what does this signify about their deepening emotional connection? Share your insights in the comments. A love woven into destiny, and amidst the blossoming of love between Eliza and Lucas, something even greater and deeper emerged from the heart of that woman, who was once humiliated for wearing a mended dress, now recognized as one of the greatest talents in American fashion. Eliza knew that her mission went far beyond the runways. She carried within her the strength of a journey marked by pain, by overcoming adversity, and above all, by hope. And it was with that purpose that the Threads of Hope Foundation was born, a project conceived by Eliza to welcome, train, and transform the lives of women like her and her mother. Dreamy, courageous, and often invisible women who just needed a chance. The foundation's headquarters was built next to the Diva Couture Atelier, with rooms equipped with modern sewing machines, pattern-making space, digital design, and a small, cozy auditorium where meetings, courses, and fashion shows would be held. The inauguration brought together important names from the fashion world, social representatives, and, most importantly, women of all ages who, like Eliza once was, arrived with eyes full of doubt and hearts full of dreams. On the stage decorated with white and lilac flowers, Eliza stood beside Olga, her mother, dressed in an elegant linen suit made by her own daughter, her gray hair pulled back in a delicate bun, and her emotional eyes fixed on the audience. Eliza held a microphone in her trembling hands, but her gaze was firm. She took a deep breath and began her speech. I used to believe that my destiny was sealed by the place where I was born, by the clothes I wore, or by the opportunities I lacked. For a long time, I felt invisible. I grew up watching my mother sew tirelessly to support our home. She never complained, but I saw in her eyes the same dream that existed in me, to be recognized not for what we wore, but for what we were capable of creating. The audience fell into absolute silence, absorbing every word. Olga grasped her daughter's hand, emotional. Everything changed the day I entered, uninvited, a wedding ceremony. I was expelled, humiliated, ridiculed. But on that very same day, someone believed in me. Someone extended a hand when all I had was a dress, sewn with scraps and a heart full of shame. That someone was Lucas, but he didn't rescue me. He just showed me where the door was. I was the one who walked through it. The press cameras captured every gesture, every tear, as emotional faces appeared in the audience. Eliza continued, "Today, next to my mother, the strongest woman I know, I can say that no dream is too small, that no woman should be silenced or ignored because of her origin, her appearance, or her story. The Threads of Hope Foundation is born to be that space where talents are welcomed, where dignity is restored, stitch by stitch, line by line, seam by seam." She turned to Olga and smiled with tenacity. "I sewed the candlelight you taught me into my soul. Today, I want to multiply that teaching. This foundation is as much yours as it is mine, Mother." The audience rose in applause. Olga hugged Eliza, both emotional. Amidst the applause, Lucas also stood up, with a sparkle in his eyes and a heart full of pride. This was more than an event. It was the consecration of a story that began with tears and was now sown with hope. That night, with the soft air and the scent of fresh flowers, Eliza Suarez made it clear that her story wasn't just about overcoming adversity. It was about rebuilding, sharing, and giving back to the world a little of what the world once denied her. And in that small auditorium, women who once hid in the shadows began for the first time to believe in their own light. How does the establishment of the Threads of Hope Foundation represent the culmination of Eliza's journey and her desire to give back? What is the significance of Olga standing beside Eliza during her speech, and how does it symbolize their shared resilience? Share your insights in the comments. A few hours after the moving and hopeful event, night enveloped the Diva Couture atelier in a sacred, almost reverent silence. The celebratory atmosphere still shimmered in the air, but at that moment, only two presences filled the space: Eliza and Lucas. She still wore the lilac dress, delicate and elegant, like the new woman she had become. The atelier, once the setting for so many creations, now transformed into the backdrop for a new chapter. The most intimate of all, Lucas took a deep breath. He felt the weight of emotion in his throat, but also the lightness of someone who carried the certainty of what he desired. And then, without a script, an audience, or preparation, he knelt. He approached her lovingly, his eyes moist, and whispered, "I know you never needed saving, Eliza. I know you were strong long before I appeared. But from the moment I saw you in that church, with that mended dress and your eyes full of dignity, something in me changed. You have been the impulse that beats in my heart." Eliza's eyes widened, and she felt the air leave her for a second. Her lips trembled, and her free hand went to her chest, trying to contain the avalanche of feelings. Lucas continued, his voice firm but sweet. "You never needed a pompous title to recognize the magnificent woman you are. You never asked me for anything, but today I ask you, not with your own talent, with your own history, but because you taught me to be a better man." Eliza felt a tear roll down her cheek, and she fell to her knees in front of him. They were now face to face, eyes locked, hearts disarmed, ready. She cupped Lucas's face in her hands, with a shy but truthful smile. But because even the strongest women need someone to lean on, someone who sees them, not as fragile, but as warriors, who also wish to be loved. She took a deep breath, emotional, and then, without hesitation, spoke the words that would begin a new and eternal chapter. "Yes, I accept." Lucas gently pulled her into an embrace, and the two remained there, as their dreams had taken shape. Now it was their future that was being sown. There were no rings at that moment, only two souls aligned in the same rhythm. There, among threads and fabrics, between patterns and soft lights, love was embroidered with the same precision and sensitivity that Eliza put into every stitch. And so it wasn't with gold or pomp. It was with truth, with humility, with the kind of love that doesn't need showcases to shine. Because at that moment, the whole world was summed up in two hearts beating together, sewing a future with the invisible threads of trust, admiration, and the promise that they would never again let go. What is the significance of Lucas choosing to propose to Eliza in her atelier, surrounded by her creations and symbols of her journey? How does Eliza's response to his proposal encapsulate her strength, her vulnerability, and her acceptance of true love? Share your insights in the comments. In the same cathedral where Eliza was once humiliated, treated as an intruder, and rejected for the simple fact of wearing a mended dress, a story of redemption, triumph, and true love unfolded. The walls, once witnesses to mockery, now resonated with respect and admiration. The same pews where cruel whispers once spread were now occupied by attentive and emotional eyes fixed on the woman walking down the central aisle. Eliza was dazzling. Her wedding dress, designed and made by herself, was a model worthy of a modern fairy tale. White as hope, with hand-embroidered details that seemed to tell, stitch by stitch, her entire journey. Her hair was pulled back in an elegant bun, her face illuminated by soft, natural makeup. She walked with firm steps, her head held high, like someone who knew how to rebuild her own dignity, brick by brick, like a true figure. Lucas waited for her at the altar. His gaze was serene, loving, and his lips formed the smile of someone who knew how lucky he was. The guests, many of whom had witnessed or participated in the humiliation Eliza suffered in the past, were now in complete silence, captivated by the strength she exuded with her simple presence. By his side, Eleanor, yes, Eleanor herself, the one who once screamed with cruelty at the church entrance, now wore an exclusive dress signed by Eliza Suarez. The irony wasn't cruel. It was symbolic. It was poetic justice. When Eliza reached the altar, Lucas approached the podium, took the microphone, and with a soft touch, made the sound crackle. His gesture was delicate, but it was purposeful. "Before we continue with the vows," he said, "I would like everyone here to hear a few words from my future wife, because no one in this cathedral deserves to be heard more than she does." Eliza's eyes widened in surprise, but Lucas gave her an encouraging look, and then, with the same firmness with which she once gathered courage to sew her first dress amidst the details of the tailor shop, she walked to the microphone. There was a brief silence. The cathedral spotlights focused on her face, and she, with slightly flushed cheeks, kept her head held high. "My name is Eliza Suarez." Her voice cut through the air like a silk blade, firm, delicate, impossible to ignore. "You may know me as the girl in the mended dress, the intruder, the ragged one, the one who one day entered these doors without an invitation, without pomp, just with the pure desire to see a ceremony of love. And for that, I was humiliated, ridiculed, expelled." No one moved. The weight of those words hung over all present like an undeniable truth. But today, as the protagonist of my own story, I have not come to prove anything, because my worth is no longer under judgment. It is visible in every line of the dresses I create, in every step I have taken, in every pain I have overcome. She looked at Lucas, her voice caught. "I am a victor, not because I defeated others, but because I defeated myself. Shame, fear, doubt, and I transformed all this into strength." The audience's eyes filled with tears. The silence was so profound that one could hear hearts beating. It was then that Eleanor stood up. Her eyes red, filled with guilt and emotion, looked directly at Eliza, the same woman she had once expelled, now trembling as she asked for forgiveness. "I went too far. I regret what I did. Do you forgive me?" Her voice came out trembling, rough, but sincere. For an instant, time stopped. And then Eliza said, "It's all right, sister. My words here today are not about revenge, but about respect, dignity, and justice. And those who seek justice must also know how to forgive. You are forgiven." An emotional murmur ran through the church. Some timid applause followed. Tears streamed not only from Olga's face, but from many others. It was as if forgiveness at that moment healed not only Eliza's wound, but also those of all who were there, all who had once doubted, judged, or ignored a soul because of its appearance. Lucas returned to the microphone. Now his eyes were also moist. Now we can continue with the vows." Eliza smiled, a sweet, true smile, and then she returned to the altar. The wedding dress that was once just a dream now adorned the woman who no longer needed to hide behind fabrics, because her name, her story, and her courage were already enough to shine. And there, under the same roof that once rejected her, Eliza was celebrated, not only for her beauty or talent, but for the magnificent woman she had become. And the yes she would say in moments would be just another chapter of a story where love, dignity, and triumph won, stitch by stitch, line by line, finally sewing an ending worthy of a queen. How does Eliza's wedding dress, designed and sewn by herself, symbolize her journey and personal triumph? What is the significance of Eleanor's public apology and Eliza's decision to forgive her? Share your final reflections. Never allow others' judgment to define who you are. Eliza was humiliated, called an intruder, ridiculed for wearing a dream sewn with hope. But she didn't give up. With courage, talent, and dignity, she transformed the details of humiliation into dresses of triumph. The very place that rejected her one day applauded her standing. So, when life closes doors, remember, you can sew your own. Your worth is not in what you see, but in the strength you carry in your heart. And you? What do you think of Eliza and Lucas's story? Share your opinion in the comments below, and stay tuned for more exciting stories like this. Hugs, and see you next time.